The smoke rose in lazy spirals against the cloudless Texas sky, marking the spot where death had visited the prairie with its usual cruelty. Owen Xavier pulled his mare to a halt at the crest of the low rise and squinted at the blackened skeleton of a wagon still smoldering in the afternoon heat. The smell of charred wood and something worse carrying on the August wind across the grassland between Sweetwater and the Red River. It was 1878, and the frontier still held more dangers than promises for those brave or foolish enough to try taming it. He sat there for a moment, weighing whether to ride on toward town with the supplies he had packed on his second horse or investigate what was clearly a scene of violence. The decision was made for him when a thin, reedy wail cut through the hot stillness, so faint he almost thought he had imagined it. Owen dismounted in one fluid motion, his hand instinctively checking the revolver at his hip as he approached the wreckage with careful steps, his boots crunching on the scorched earth. The wagon had been a good one once, the kind a family might use to cross into new territory with hopes of starting fresh. Now it was nothing but blackened wood and twisted metal, the canvas cover burned away completely. Two bodies lay nearby, a man and a woman, both beyond any help he could offer. He removed his hat and stood for a moment in respect before the cry came again, stronger this time, insistent. Owen circled the wagon and found her in a wooden crate that had somehow been thrown clear of the flames, probably when the wagon tongue broke. She could not have been more than a few months old, her face red and scrunched with fury and fear, her tiny fists waving in the air. Somehow, miraculously, she was unharmed except for a small cut on her forehead. He picked her up with the awkward care of a man unaccustomed to holding infants, and she quieted momentarily, staring at him with eyes that seemed too old for such a young face. "Well now," he said softly, his voice rough from days of riding alone, "what am I supposed to do with you?" The baby's face crumpled and she began to cry again, a desperate sound that spoke of hunger and thirst. Owen looked around the devastated campsite, hoping to find something, anything, that might help. He found a canteen that had survived the fire, still half full of water, but nothing else useful. The attackers, whoever they had been, had taken everything of value and left only destruction behind. He stood in the dying light of late afternoon, holding a crying baby in the middle of nowhere, and realized he had exactly one choice. The nearest town with a doctor or women who might help was Sweetwater, but that was 30 miles south, and he had just come from there. Going back would add days to his journey home to his ranch near the border. But north, if he remembered correctly, there was a small settlement called Redemption Springs, maybe 20 miles away. Still, neither place would be reached before nightfall, and this baby needed milk, needed care, needed things he did not know how to provide. Owen made his decision quickly, the way he made all decisions. He could not leave her here to die. He fashioned a sling from his spare shirt, settling the baby against his chest where she could hear his heartbeat. She quieted some, though she still fussed and whimpered. He buried the man and woman as best he could with the tools he had, marking the spot with stones so someone might find it later and do the thing properly. Then he mounted up, adjusting his seat to accommodate the tiny passenger, and turned his horses north. The sun was setting behind him, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, when he realized the baby was not just fussy but truly suffering. Her cries had grown weaker, which scared him more than the loud wails had. She needed milk, needed it soon, or she would not survive the night. He urged his mare to a faster pace, though he knew he was asking a lot of her after the day's ride. The pack horse followed behind, laden with the supplies he had purchased in Sweetwater. Night fell completely, and Owen rode by moonlight and instinct, following the rough trail north. He had traveled this way a few times before, knew the general direction, but in the dark everything looked different. The baby had stopped crying altogether, which terrified him. He kept checking to make sure she was still breathing, feeling the faint rise and fall of her tiny chest against his own. It was near midnight when he saw the lights of Redemption Springs in the distance, just a handful of buildings clustered around a crossroads. He pushed the horses harder, knowing he was being cruel but having no choice. The baby was limp in his arms now, her breathing shallow. He rode straight to the only building still showing light, a combination store and trading post, and practically fell off his horse. He pounded on the door until it opened, revealing a startled man in his 50s with gray hair and suspicious eyes. "I need milk," Owen said without preamble. "Cow's milk, goat's milk, anything. I have a baby." The man's expression changed when he saw the bundle against Owen's chest. "Lord Almighty, bring her inside. Martha," he called over his shoulder. "We got an emergency." Owen stumbled into the store, exhaustion hitting him now that he had reached some kind of safety. A woman appeared from the back, wiping her hands on her apron, her weathered face creasing with concern when she saw the baby. "Give her here," Martha said, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to managing crises. She took the baby with practiced hands, unwrapping the makeshift sling and checking her over with gentle efficiency. "She is badly dehydrated. How long has she been without milk?" "I do not know," Owen admitted. "I found her maybe 6-7 hours ago in a burned wagon. Her parents were dead." Martha's lips tightened, but she did not ask questions. "Samuel, get the goat milk from the cold box and bring some honey and warm water." She looked at Owen. "Sit down before you fall down. When did you last eat?" "This morning, but I am fine. Is she going to live?" "If we can get some liquid in her, she has a chance. She is a fighter, I can tell." Martha carried the baby to a chair near the stove and sat down, cradling her carefully. Samuel brought a bottle and a bowl, and Martha began mixing goat's milk with a little warm water and a tiny bit of honey, testing the temperature on her wrist before touching the bottle to the baby's lips. At first, the baby did not respond, and Owen felt his heart sink. But then her mouth moved, instinct taking over, and she began to drink in small, weak sips. Martha kept the bottle tilted just right, encouraging her, speaking softly. Owen watched, feeling useless and strangely moved by the sight. "She is taking it," Martha said with satisfaction. "That is a good sign. She will need to eat slow and steady through the night, but I think she will pull through." Owen felt something release in his chest, some tension he had not even known he was carrying. He sat down heavily in a chair, suddenly aware of how tired he was, how much the day had taken from him. Samuel set a plate of cold meat and bread in front of him. "Eat. Then you can tell us what happened." Between bites, Owen explained what he had found: the burned wagon, the dead parents, the baby crying in a box that had somehow escaped the fire. He did not speculate about who had attacked them or why. On the frontier, such violence was common enough that the reasons almost did not matter. Bandits, renegades, claim jumpers, men driven mad by isolation and greed. Death came in many forms out here. "You did right, bringing her here," Martha said, still feeding the baby in patient increments. "Another few hours and she would have been past saving. What are you planning to do with her?" Owen had been trying not to think about that question. "I do not know. Take her to Sweetwater, I suppose. There is a doctor there and more people. Someone might know who her family was if she has any kin who could take her." "Sweetwater is a far piece," Samuel observed. "You will need milk for her along the way. I can sell you some bottles and goat's milk. You will have to stop every few hours to feed her." "I will manage," Owen said, though he had no idea if that was true. He had never taken care of anything more delicate than a newborn foal, and even then the mare had done most of the work. Martha looked at him appraisingly. "You married? Got a wife waiting somewhere?" "No, madam. Just me and my ranch hand Miguel. We run cattle near the border, small operation." "Then you will be needing help when you get to Sweetwater. A man alone cannot raise a baby." She paused, considering. "There is a young woman there, works at the boarding house. Willa Crane. She is good with children, helped raise her younger siblings before they moved on. Lost her own folks to fever couple years back. If anyone in Sweetwater could help you figure out what to do with this little one, it would be her." Owen filed the name away. He finished eating while Martha continued feeding the baby, who was taking the milk more eagerly now, her color improving. When the bottle was empty, Martha burped her expertly and wrapped her in a clean blanket that Samuel produced from somewhere. "She will need changing," Martha said practically. "I have some cloth you can use for diapers. You know how to do that." Owen shook his head, feeling his face heat with embarrassment. Martha smiled, not unkindly. "I will show you. It is not complicated, just messy, but you will need to know for the journey back." Over the next hour, Martha gave Owen a crash course in basic baby care. How to hold her properly, how to change her, how to test if the milk was too hot, how to tell if she was hungry or wet or just wanting comfort. Owen absorbed it all with the same focused attention he gave to breaking horses or tracking strays, knowing this unexpected knowledge might mean the difference between life and death for the tiny person who had been thrust into his care. They let him sleep for a few hours on a cot in the back room, while Martha and Samuel took turns watching the baby, feeding her small amounts every couple of hours. When Owen woke just before dawn, he found Martha rocking the baby in the gray light of early morning, humming something soft and tuneless. "She made it through the night," Martha said when she saw him stirring. "She is stronger than she looks. Have some coffee, then you should get going if you want to make Sweetwater by tomorrow night. It is Sunday, so the church ladies will be around. They will help however they can." Owen paid Samuel for the supplies, including several bottles of goat's milk packed in wet cloth to keep them cool, clean rags for diapers, and a proper sling that Martha had sewn up from some spare fabric. The baby was sleeping peacefully now, her tiny face relaxed, the cut on her forehead already starting to heal. "What will you call her?" Martha asked as Owen prepared to leave. He had not thought about it. The baby had just been her and the baby in his mind. But Martha was right. She needed a name, at least until he could find out what her parents had called her, if they had even gotten that far. "Hope," he said after a moment. "I will call her Hope because she survived when she should not have." Martha nodded approvingly. "That is a good name. You take care now, Owen Xavier. And when you get to Sweetwater, you find Willa Crane at the boarding house. Tell her Martha from Redemption Springs sent you." Owen rode out as the sun crested the horizon, Hope nestled against his chest in the proper sling, sleeping off her ordeal. The journey to Sweetwater would take him through some rough country, but the alternative was taking her back north to his ranch, where he would be even more isolated and helpless. At least in Sweetwater there were resources, people who knew about babies and families. The day grew hot as the sun climbed higher, and Owen stopped frequently to check on Hope, to give her water and milk, to change her when needed. Each time he stopped, he marveled at how small she was, how fragile, how completely dependent on him for everything. It was a weight he had not asked for, but now that he carried it, he found he could not imagine setting it down. He thought about her parents as he rode, wondered what their names had been, what dreams they had carried west. They had died trying to make a better life for their daughter, died in violence and flame, but somehow their child had survived. Owen was not a religious man, but he could not help feeling there was something almost miraculous about that, some purpose he did not yet understand. That night, he made camp in a small grove of cottonwoods near a creek, building a fire more for comfort than warmth. Hope fussed and cried, and he fed her awkwardly, trying to remember everything Martha had taught him. Eventually, she settled, and he held her against his shoulder, feeling her breath warm on his neck, her small body trusting and vulnerable. "I will get you somewhere safe," he promised her in the darkness. "I will find you someone who can take care of you proper. You are going to be all right." The baby made a small sound, almost like she believed him. They reached Sweetwater late the following afternoon, Owen dusty and exhausted, Hope fussy from the long ride. The town was bigger than Redemption Springs, with a main street lined with businesses, a church with a white steeple, and several side streets of houses. Owen rode straight to the boarding house, a two-story structure near the center of town with a wide porch and lace curtains in the windows. He tied his horses to the rail and climbed the steps, Hope bundled in his arms. A sign hung near the door: Mrs. Patterson's boarding house, clean rooms, good meals, respectable clientele. Owen knocked and waited. The door opened to reveal a plump woman in her 60s with iron gray hair and sharp blue eyes that took in Owen, his dusty clothes, and the baby in one comprehensive glance. "Help you?" she asked, her tone hovering between welcoming and suspicious. "I am looking for someone named Willa Crane." "I was told she works here. Martha from Redemption Springs sent me." The mention of Martha's name seemed to decide something. Mrs. Patterson opened the door wider. "Willa is out back doing laundry. Come through. You look like you could use some water and that baby needs tending." Owen followed her through a neat parlor and dining room to a large kitchen that smelled of bread and cinnamon. Through the window, he could see a young woman hanging sheets on a line, her dark hair caught up in a bun, her sleeves rolled to her elbows. Even from behind, even doing such a mundane task, there was something graceful about her movements. "Willa," Mrs. Patterson called through the open door. "Someone here to see you." The young woman turned, and Owen felt something shift in his chest. She was beautiful in a quiet way, with dark eyes and delicate features, but it was more than that. There was a warmth to her expression, an openness that seemed remarkable in a place where people learn to guard themselves carefully. She came inside, wiping her hands on her apron, her gaze going immediately to the baby. "Oh my! What happened?" Owen found himself telling the story again, how he had found Hope, the ride to Redemption Springs, Martha's help, and the long journey to Sweetwater. Willa listened intently, her eyes never leaving the baby, and when he finished, she held out her arms in a gesture so natural Owen barely thought before passing Hope to her. "You poor little thing," Willa murmured, checking Hope over with the same practiced efficiency Martha had shown. "She needs a proper bath and fresh clothes. Mrs. Patterson, do we still have those baby things from when Reverend Simmons' daughter stayed with us? In the attic, I believe. I will fetch them." Mrs. Patterson bustled off, leaving Owen and Willa alone in the kitchen. "Sit down before you fall over," Willa said, echoing Martha's words from 2 nights ago. She moved around the kitchen one-handed. Hope settled comfortably in the crook of her arm and poured Owen a cup of water from the pitcher. "You rode 30 miles from Redemption Springs today, more or less." "I needed to get her somewhere with proper help. Martha said you were that help." Willa smiled, and Owen felt that shift in his chest again, stronger this time. "Martha is always volunteering me for things, but she is right. I know about babies. I raised my 3 younger brothers and my sister after my mother got too sick to manage. That was back in Missouri before we came west." Her expression clouded briefly. "They are all grown now, scattered to different territories, and my parents passed." "I am sorry," Owen said, meaning it. It was a while ago. The fever took them both within a week of each other. Mrs. Patterson gave me work and a place to stay, and I have been here since." She looked down at Hope. "What are you planning to do with her?" "I was hoping you might have ideas about that. I cannot keep her. I have a ranch. I am gone for days sometimes. It is no place for a baby, but I cannot just leave her either." "No, you cannot," Willa agreed. "Let me think on it. First, let us get her cleaned up and comfortable. You can stay for dinner and we will figure out what comes next." Mrs. Patterson returned with a wooden crate full of baby clothes, blankets, and other necessities. Willa heated water and bathed Hope in a basin on the kitchen table, handling her with such confidence and gentleness that Owen found himself mesmerized. She dressed the baby in a soft gown and wrapped her in a clean blanket, then mixed a proper bottle of milk. "You have been feeding her goat's milk?" Willa asked as she settled into a rocking chair near the stove. "That is what Martha had. Is that wrong?" "No, it is fine. Better than cow's milk for babies, actually. She seems to be taking it well." Willa fed Hope with the same patient care Martha had shown, and Owen watched, feeling oddly like he was intruding on something intimate and sacred. Other residents of the boarding house began arriving for dinner, and Mrs. Patterson shooed Owen upstairs to wash up and change his shirt. When he came back down, the dining room was full of people, mostly men who worked in town or nearby ranches, a few older couples. The conversation flowed around him, but Owen found his attention kept drifting to the kitchen, where Willa was still tending to Hope. After dinner, when the other boarders had dispersed to the parlor or their rooms, Owen helped Willa clear the table. Mrs. Patterson had taken Hope and was rocking her near the stove, cooing softly. "I have been thinking," Willa said as she washed dishes and Owen dried, "about what to do. There is an orphanage in Dallas, about 3 days' ride east. They take in babies and find them homes. Or we could ask around town, see if anyone knows of a family that might want to adopt her." Owen felt an unexpected resistance to both ideas. What about her real family? There might be relatives somewhere, people who are looking for her parents, wondering what happened. "That is true," Willa admitted. "Did you find anything at the Wagon site? Papers, letters, anything that might tell us who they were?" "No. Everything was burned or taken. I do not even know which direction they were headed." "Then finding her family will be difficult, but we can try. I will talk to Reverend Simmons tomorrow. He knows most of the families in this part of Texas, and he hears things from other preachers passing through. Maybe someone will know about a couple traveling with a baby who never reached their destination." "I would appreciate that," Owen said. He dried the last plate and set it on the stack. "Thank you for helping. I know I showed up here unexpected and just thrust this on you." Willa turned to face him, her hands still in the soapy water. "You saved her life. Riding 30 miles through the night to find her milk, bringing her here to safety. That is not something to apologize for. That is something to be grateful happened." Her dark eyes met his, and Owen felt it again, that sense of something shifting and settling into place, like a puzzle piece finding its proper spot. He had known this woman for only a few hours, but there was a rightness to being in this kitchen with her, working side by side, united in the care of a helpless child. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat from her spot by the stove. "Willa, the baby is asleep. You want me to put her in your room?" "Yes, please. I will watch her tonight." Willa dried her hands and went to take Hope from Mrs. Patterson. The baby barely stirred, content and safe, finally secure after her ordeal. "Where should I bed down?" Owen asked. "I can sleep in the stable with my horses if you do not have room." "Nonsense," Mrs. Patterson said. "We have a room available. $5 a week includes breakfast and dinner." "I will take it for a week then. Give me time to figure things out." That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in days, Owen found himself unable to sleep. He kept thinking about Hope, wondering if she was all right, if Willa needed help. He thought about the baby's parents, buried in shallow graves out on the prairie. Their dreams ended, but their daughter living on. And he thought about Willa, the warmth in her eyes, the competent gentleness of her hands, the way she had taken on Hope's care without hesitation or complaint. He was still awake when he heard a baby crying and footsteps in the hall. Without thinking, he got up and pulled on his pants and shirt, following the sound to Willa's room. The door was ajar, and he could see her pacing with Hope, trying to soothe her. "Can I help?" he asked softly, not wanting to startle her. Willa turned, and in the lamplight her face looked tired but not annoyed. "I cannot get her to settle. I think she might be colicky. Sometimes walking helps. Let me take her for a while. You should rest. You need rest too. You rode for 2 days straight. I am used to it, please." Willa hesitated, then passed Hope to him. The baby's cries quieted momentarily at the change, then resumed, a miserable sound that tore at Owen's heart. He walked the length of the hall and back, rocking Hope gently, humming something wordless his own mother had sung when he was small and frightened. Willa watched from her doorway, her arms crossed over her nightgown. "You are good with her." "I do not know about that." "I am just trying not to drop her. You care about her. That is what matters." Willa paused. "It is strange, is it not? 2 days ago you did not know she existed. Now here you are, walking the floor at 2 in the morning to help her sleep. I found her. That makes her my responsibility." That is not how most people would see it. Most people would have left her or taken her to the nearest town and been done with it. Owen thought about that. He supposed it was true. He could have left Hope at Redemption Springs or dropped her with the first family he passed, washing his hands of the whole situation. But the thought had never seriously occurred to him. "I could not do that," he said simply. "She trusted me. I could feel it when I held her. She stopped crying and just looked at me like she knew I would not let anything bad happen to her. How could I betray that?" Willa's expression softened. "You are a good man, Owen Xavier." He felt his face warm at the praise. "I am just doing what anyone would do, but they would not." "That is my point." Hope finally settled, her cries tapering off into small hiccups and then silence. Owen kept walking anyway, not wanting to disturb her by stopping. Willa came out into the hall and walked beside him, their footsteps quiet on the wooden floor. "Tell me about your ranch," she said softly. "What is it like?" Owen told her about the land he had claimed near the border, the small herd of cattle he was building up, the house he had built with his own hands. He told her about Miguel, his hired man who was more friend than employee, and about the hard work of trying to make something lasting in a place that seemed determined to break everyone who tried. "It sounds lonely," Willa said when he finished. "It is, sometimes, but it is mine, you know. I am not working for someone else or following someone else's orders. It is my dream, my future. I understand that. After my parents died, Mrs. Patterson offered me a home, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have something of my own again. A real home, not just a room in someone else's house." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, Hope sleeping peacefully now against Owen's chest. When they reached Willa's room again, she took the baby carefully and laid her in the makeshift cradle Mrs. Patterson had set up, a drawer from a dresser lined with blankets. "Thank you," Willa whispered, "for helping." "Any time," Owen said and meant it. He went back to his room but still could not sleep, his mind too full of new thoughts and feelings. He had come to Sweetwater to find help for a baby, and instead had found something he had not even known he was looking for. A connection, a possibility, a woman whose smile made him want to stay rather than run. The next morning, After a breakfast of eggs and biscuits, Willa took Hope to visit Reverend Simmons while Owen saw to his horses and the supplies he had left on the pack horse. He needed to decide what to do next. He could not stay in Sweetwater indefinitely. Miguel was managing the ranch alone, and there was work that needed doing. But he also could not leave until he knew Hope would be taken care of properly. When Willa returned an hour later, she found Owen on the boarding house porch, mending a bridle. Hope was awake and alert, looking around at the world with curious eyes. Reverend Simmons said he would send out inquiries to other churches and settlements, see if anyone knows about Hope's parents. It might take a few weeks to hear anything back. Willa sat down on the porch swing, settling Hope in her lap. In the meantime, he mentioned that Sarah and Thomas Green have been wanting to adopt a child. They have a good farm just outside town, and Sarah cannot have children of her own. He thought they might be interested in meeting Hope. Owen felt that resistance again, stronger this time. Already, we have not even tried to find her real family yet. I know, but if we cannot find them, Hope will need a home. The Greens are good people, I know them from church. They would take excellent care of her. I am sure they would, Owen said, though he did not sound sure at all. It just seems fast. Willa gave him a searching look. You have gotten attached to her. I just want to make sure she ends up somewhere right, after everything she has been through. Of course. But Willa was smiling slightly, like she understood something Owen himself did not. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Owen helped around the boarding house, fixing things that needed repair and carrying heavy loads for Mrs. Patterson. He took his meals in the dining room with the other boarders, but found himself spending most of his free time in the kitchen, where Willa worked, and Hope spent her days sleeping or watching the world with those two old eyes. He learned things about Willa in bits and pieces. She was 21, had come west with her family 5 years ago seeking better prospects. She loved to read but rarely had time for it. She wanted children of her own someday, but had no prospects for marriage in a town where single men outnumbered single women, but somehow none of them seemed quite right. She had a quiet strength about her, a resilience born of loss and hardship. And Owen told her things he had not told anyone in years. About his own family, lost to cholera when he was 17. About the years he had spent drifting, working other men's ranches, learning everything he could about cattle and horses and surviving in hard country. About the day he had staked his claim and decided to stop running, to build something permanent. That takes courage, Willa said one evening as they sat on the porch, Hope asleep in her arms, the sun setting in brilliant streaks of red and gold. Starting over, building from nothing. Or stupidity, Owen said with a slight smile. Sometimes it is hard to tell the difference. I do not think you are stupid, stubborn maybe, but not stupid. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you found a baby crying in a burned wagon and rode 30 miles through the night to find her milk. I know you have spent the last 5 days helping take care of her even though you do not have to. I know you fix broken things and work hard and pay your debts. What else is there to know? Owen looked at her, at the way the fading light caught in her dark hair, at the gentle way she held Hope, at the warmth in her eyes when she looked back at him. Maybe you should know that I do not want to go back to my ranch. Not yet. Maybe not at all if I am being honest. Willa's breath caught. Why not? Because of you, he said simply. Because I have never met anyone like you, and the thought of riding away and never seeing you again makes me feel like I am losing something important before I ever really had it. For a long moment, Willa did not respond, just held his gaze in the twilight. Then she said softly, I have been feeling the same way. I tried to tell myself it was just because of Hope, because we have been taking care of her together. But it is more than that, is it not? Yes, Owen said. It is much more than that. He reached out and took her free hand, and she laced her fingers through his, the simple touch sending warmth through his entire body. They sat like that as darkness fell, connected by clasped hands and an understanding that needed no more words. The next day, Sarah and Thomas Green came to meet Hope. They were in their 30s, both kind-faced and obviously nervous, and they fell in love with the baby immediately. Sarah held Hope with a longing that was almost painful to watch, and Thomas looked at his wife with such hope and tenderness that Owen felt his resistance wavering. "She is beautiful," Sarah said, tears shining in her eyes. "We would give her everything. A good home, love, brothers and sisters eventually if the Lord blesses us with more children through adoption. She would want for nothing." "That is what I want for her," Owen said carefully, "but we are still trying to find her real family. If someone comes looking for her, she would need to go to them." "Of course," Thomas agreed. "We understand that, but if no one claims her, we would be honored to raise her as our own." After they left, Willa found Owen in the stable, brushing down his mare with more force than necessary. "They are good people," she said gently. "Hope would be happy with them. I know that, I do. It is just hard to think about giving her up." He paused in his brushing. "That probably sounds crazy. She is not even mine." "It does not sound crazy at all. You saved her life. You care about her. That creates a bond." Willa came closer, resting her hand on his arm. "But we have to do what is best for Hope, not what makes us feel better." "I know," Owen said again. "You are right. If the Greens want her and no family comes forward, she should go to them. They can give her things I never could." "Like what?" "A mother, a proper home, stability." He set down the brush and turned to face Willa fully. "I cannot even offer her those things, can I? I am a single man with a struggling ranch and no experience with children." "What kind of life would that be for her?" Willa was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, "What if you were not single?" Owen's heart began to pound. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I care about Hope too, and I care about you. And I have been thinking that maybe we could give her a home together. If you wanted that. If it is not too crazy or too soon or too presumptuous of me to even suggest." Owen stared at her, hardly believing what he was hearing. "You would marry me, come to my ranch, help me raise Hope." "If you were asking, I would say yes." Willa's cheeks were flushed, but she met his eyes steadily. "I know it is fast. We have only known each other a week, but sometimes you just know, do you not, when something is right?" "Yes," Owen said, his voice rough with emotion. "Sometimes you know." He took her hands in his, holding tight. "Willa Crane, will you marry me? Will you help me raise Hope and build a life together and take a chance on something neither of us expected?" "Yes," Willa said, and she was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, I will." Owen pulled her close and kissed her, and it felt like coming home after a long journey, like finding something precious he had not even known was lost. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Willa was smiling wider than he had ever seen. "We should tell Mrs. Patterson," she said. "And we will need to talk to Reverend Simmons about the wedding, and figure out when we can leave for your ranch, and tell the Greens that Hope will not need adopting after all." "One thing at a time," Owen said, but he was grinning too, unable to contain the joy that was bubbling up inside him. "First, let us go get Hope and tell her she has a family now." They found Hope in the kitchen, napping in a basket while Mrs. Patterson kneaded bread dough. The older woman took one look at their joined hands and beaming faces and knew immediately what had happened. "Well," she said with satisfaction, "it is about time. I knew from the moment you walked through that door with that baby that this was all going to work out somehow." "You did not know any such thing," Willa protested, but she was still smiling. "I had my suspicions." "When are you thinking for the wedding?" "As soon as possible," Owen said. "I have a ranch to get back to, and I have been gone too long already. Plus, I do not want to give Willa time to change her mind. I am not going to change my mind, Willa said firmly. She picked up Hope, who was starting to wake, and cradled her close. What do you think, little one? Do you want to come live on a ranch with us? Have a real family? Hope made a small cooing sound, and they all laughed, taking it as agreement. Reverend Simmons agreed to perform the ceremony that Sunday after the regular service, giving them 4 days to prepare. It was a whirlwind of activity. Willa sewed a simple but pretty dress from fabric Mrs. Patterson donated. Owen bought rings from the jeweler and a new suit from the general store. Mrs. Patterson insisted on hosting a small reception at the boarding house. Word spread through Sweetwater quickly, and people Owen had never met came by to offer congratulations and gifts. A set of dishes from the mercantile owner's wife, a quilt from the ladies' sewing circle, a wooden cradle that Thomas Green delivered himself, along with his and Sarah's blessing and only a little sadness in their eyes. We are happy for you, Sarah said, and she meant it. Hope belongs with you both. Anyone can see that. On Sunday morning, Owen stood at the front of the church in his new suit, Miguel beside him as best man. His friend had ridden in from the ranch the day before, surprised and delighted by the news. You work fast, amigo, Miguel had said with a grin. 1 week ago you leave for supplies. Now you come back with a wife and a baby. Life is full of surprises, Owen had replied, now watching Willa walk down the aisle in her new dress, Hope in her arms. Owen thought he had never seen anything more beautiful. Willa's eyes were shining, locked on his, and when she reached him and passed Hope to Mrs. Patterson so they could join hands, Owen felt the rightness of it settle over him like a blessing. Reverend Simmons performed the ceremony with warmth and humor, speaking about the unexpected ways God brought people together, about faith and love and family in all its forms. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Owen kissed Willa with all the tenderness and promise he could pour into the gesture, and the small congregation erupted in applause. The reception at the boarding house was simple but joyful. Mrs. Patterson had made a cake, and someone produced a fiddle, and there was dancing in the parlor while Hope slept peacefully through it all, secure in her new mother's arms. Later, as the sun set and the guests began to depart, Owen and Willa stood together on the porch, Hope between them, and looked at each other with a mixture of wonder and contentment. Are you ready for this? Willa asked. Leaving town, starting a new life on a ranch you have never seen. I am ready for anything as long as we are together, Owen said. What about you? Are you having second thoughts? Not even for a moment. Willa leaned against him, fitting perfectly under his arm. Although I reserve the right to have first thoughts about lots of things when I see this ranch of yours, Owen laughed. It is not much yet, but we will make it into something. Together. They left Sweetwater the next morning in a wagon Mrs. Patterson sold them at a generous price, loaded with supplies and gifts and all of Willa's belongings. Owen rode his mare alongside, leading the pack horse, while Willa drove the wagon with Hope secure in a padded box at her feet. The journey took 3 days, traveling slow to accommodate the wagon and the baby's needs. They camped at night under the stars, building a fire and eating simple meals, talking about their plans and dreams. Hope was an easy baby, content as long as she was fed and dry, and she seemed to enjoy the journey, watching the passing landscape with bright, curious eyes. When they finally crested the last rise and Owen could point out his land in the valley below, Willa was quiet for a long moment, taking it all in. The house was small but sturdy, built of logs and stone with a porch across the front. The barn was larger, newer, with a corral attached. Beyond that stretched pastures dotted with cattle, and past them, the rough hills that marked the border country. It is beautiful, Willa said finally. "Wild and lonely, but beautiful." "Lonely is one thing it will not be any more," Owen said. "Not with 3 of us here." Miguel came out to greet them, his weathered face breaking into a wide smile when he saw Willa and Hope. "Welcome, Senora Xavier. Welcome home." Over the next weeks and months they settled into a rhythm. Willa proved as capable on the ranch as she had been at the boarding house, taking over the cooking and housekeeping, but also helping with the animals and learning to ride. She made curtains for the windows and planted a garden. She wrote letters to Mrs. Patterson and sent inquiries to surrounding towns, still hoping to find information about Hope's family, but nothing ever came back. "Maybe it is better this way," she said to Owen one night as they lay in bed, Hope sleeping in her cradle nearby. "Maybe she was meant to be ours all along." "Maybe," Owen agreed, pulling his wife closer. "Or maybe we were just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time." "Do you think she will remember any of it? Her parents, the wagon, what happened?" "No, she is too young. All she will remember is this. Growing up here with us, loved and safe." Willa was quiet for a moment. "I hope they would approve, her parents. I hope they would be glad she ended up with us and not some orphanage or strangers." "They would approve," Owen said with certainty. "How could they not? Look at what we are giving her." What they were giving Hope was indeed a good life. As the months turned into years, she grew into a lively, curious child, trailing after Owen as he worked the ranch and helping Willa in the garden and kitchen. She learned to ride before she could properly walk, perched in front of Owen on his mare, squealing with delight as they checked fences and moved cattle. On her 2nd birthday, Willa discovered she was pregnant. She told Owen one evening after Hope was in bed, nervous and excited in equal measure. "I know we did not plan for this yet," she said. "With the ranch still growing and everything, but I am so happy, Owen. Another baby, a brother or sister for Hope." Owen picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing. "This is perfect. Everything is perfect." Their son was born the following spring, healthy and strong, with Owen's eyes and Willa's dark hair. They named him James after Owen's father, and Hope was fascinated by him, wanting to help with everything, bringing him toys and singing to him when he cried. The ranch prospered slowly but surely. Word spread that Owen Xavier was honest and hard-working, and he began getting contracts to supply beef to the army forts along the border. Miguel became a partner rather than a hired hand, and they built him his own small house on the property. They hired additional help during roundup and branding, and the small operation grew into something more substantial. Through it all, Willa was the heart of everything. She managed the house, and the children with the same quiet competence she brought to everything. She learned to shoot and ride as well as any ranch hand. She doctored sick cattle and mended fences, and kept the books that tracked their growing prosperity. And at night, she came to Owen's arms with passion and tenderness, making their small house a home filled with love. When Hope was 5, they finally received word about her birth parents. A letter came from a lawyer in Kansas City, forwarded through a long chain of inquiries. Hope's father had been Robert Morrison, a farmer looking to claim land in South Texas. Her mother had been Elizabeth Morrison, formerly Elizabeth Hayes of St. Louis. They had no other living relatives, no one to claim Hope or dispute her adoption by the Xaviers. "So it is final," Willa said, reading the letter for the 3rd time. "She is officially ours." "She was always ours," Owen said. "But yes, now it is official, legal. No one can ever take her from us." They told Hope the story when she was old enough to understand, sitting her down one evening when she was 7 and explaining gently how she had come to them, about the tragedy that had taken her birth parents but led her to this new family. Hope listened solemnly, then asked the question they had been dreading. "You wish my real parents had not died. Then you would not have me." "You have two sets of parents," Willa said carefully, pulling Hope into her lap. "Your birth parents who loved you and wanted the best for you, and your father and me, who have raised you and love you more than anything in the world. We are grateful every day that we found you, but we wish your other parents could have lived. Both things can be true." Hope considered this, then nodded. "I am glad I have you, even if it means something bad had to happen first." "So are we, sweetheart," Owen said, ruffling her hair. "So are we." More children came, a daughter named Rose when Hope was 9, then twin boys when she was 12. The house expanded to accommodate the growing family, rooms added on, a second story built. The ranch grew too, more land claimed, more cattle, a reputation as one of the best operations in the border country. But through all the changes and challenges, the core of their family remained strong. Owen and Willa's love deepened with each passing year, tempered by hardship and sweetened by joy. They fought sometimes, about money or decisions or the usual frustrations of life. But they always came back together, remembering the connection that had sparked so quickly in a boarding house kitchen over a rescued baby. Hope grew into a beautiful, spirited young woman, with her birth mother's delicate features and the strength and confidence she learned from Willa and Owen. She could ride and rope as well as any of the ranch hands, but she also loved books and learning, teaching her younger siblings their letters and sums. When Hope was 18, a young rancher from a neighboring property began courting her, much to Owen's consternation and Willa's amusement. His name was Daniel Fletcher, and he was serious and hardworking, clearly smitten with Hope. "I do not like it," Owen grumbled one evening, watching Daniel ride away after dinner. "She is too young." "She is exactly the age I was when you proposed to me," Willa pointed out. "And we had known each other only a week. She and Daniel have been courting for 6 months. That is different. We had hope. We had a reason to marry quickly." "We had a reason, but it was not hope." "Not really. We fell in love, Owen, fast and hard and completely." "Are you going to deny Hope the same happiness just because it scares you to see her grown up?" Owen sighed. "When did you get so wise?" "I have always been wise. You just do not always listen." Hope and Daniel married the following spring in a wedding that brought neighbors from 50 miles around. It was everything the wedding to Owen and Willa had not been, big and elaborate and joyous, and watching Hope dance with her new husband, Owen felt tears sting his eyes. "She is happy," Willa said softly, standing beside him. "We gave her that, a chance to grow up safe and loved and strong enough to choose her own path. I know, I just miss her already, and she has not even left yet. They are only moving to the Fletcher Ranch, not California. We will see her all the time." Willa took his hand, the gesture as natural now as breathing after so many years together. "And we still have 4 more at home to keep us busy." But one by one, the children grew and found their own paths. James took over more and more of the ranch operations as Owen and Willa grew older, eventually building his own house on the property and marrying a teacher from Sweetwater. Rose married a doctor and moved to Austin. The twins went into business together, opening a freight company that supplied ranches throughout the region. And through it all, as the years accumulated and their hair grayed and their bodies moved a little slower, Owen and Willa remained at the heart of everything. They watched their grandchildren play in the same yard where their children had played. They celebrated anniversaries and birthdays and holidays, surrounded by the family they had built from a chance meeting and a rescued baby. On their 40th anniversary, Hope organized a surprise party at the ranch, bringing together all the children and grandchildren and friends they had made over the decades. Mrs. Patterson came from Sweetwater, ancient now, but still sharp-eyed and opinionated. Miguel was there with his own large family. Even Sarah and Thomas Green came, grandparents themselves now, to celebrate the couple who had found happiness in the same circumstance that had once brought them sorrow. As the sun set and the party continued around them, Owen and Willa slipped away to the porch of the house they had shared for so long. They sat together on the old bench Owen had built their first year, watching the land they had tamed together, listening to the sounds of laughter and music drifting from inside. "You ever think about that day?" Willa asked, her head resting on Owen's shoulder. "When you rode up to the boarding house with Hope, all the time," Owen admitted. "How different everything could have been. If I had ridden past that burned wagon, if Martha had not sent me to you, if you had not been brave enough to say yes to a man you barely knew." "I was not being brave. I was following my heart. It knew what my head was still trying to figure out. Your heart was very smart then." "It still is," Willa said, turning to kiss his cheek. "It still chooses you every day." Owen pulled her closer, marveling as he always did at his incredible luck. He had set out that day 40 years ago to buy supplies, nothing more. He had come back with a wife and a daughter, and a future he had never imagined possible. All because he had stopped when he heard a baby crying, because he had ridden 30 miles to find her milk, because he had believed that even in the harsh landscape of the frontier, there was still room for compassion and hope and love. "Thank you," he said into Willa's hair, his voice rough with emotion. "For what? For saying yes. For taking a chance. For building this life with me. For making every day better than the one before it." "Right back at you," Willa said softly. "Right back at you." They sat there as darkness fell completely, the stars coming out one by one overhead, the sounds of their family celebrating inside, and neither of them could imagine being anywhere else or with anyone else. This was home. This was love. This was the life they had chosen and built together, one day at a time, through hardship and joy, loss and gain, every moment leading to this perfect, peaceful now. Inside, Hope stood at the window, watching her parents on the porch, seeing the way they fit together after all these years, the way they still reached for each other instinctively. She felt tears prick her eyes, remembering the story she had heard so many times growing up. About the cowboy who found a baby crying in a burned-out wagon, about the desperate ride through the night, about the meeting in a boarding house kitchen that changed everyone's life forever. "What are you thinking?" Daniel asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Just that I am the luckiest person in the world," Hope said. "To have been found by them, to have grown up loved like that, to know what real love looks like because I watch them every day of my life." "We should all be so lucky," Daniel agreed. And watching her parents still together after 40 years, still in love, still choosing each other every single day, Hope thought he was absolutely right. They were all lucky. Lucky that Owen Xavier had a good heart and steady hands. Lucky that Willa Crane had been brave enough to bet on a stranger and a future she could not predict. Lucky that sometimes, even in the hardest places, love could take root and grow into something beautiful and lasting. The party continued late into the night, full of stories and laughter, and the kind of joy that comes from family gathered together. When the last guest had left and the house was quiet again, Owen and Willa climbed the stairs to their bedroom, moving with the careful synchronization of people who had shared space for decades. They prepared for bed in companionable silence, and when they finally lay down together, Willa curled into Owen's side exactly the way she had every night for 40 years. His arm came around her automatically, holding her close, and they both sighed in contentment. 40 years, Willa mused. Where did the time go? Into everything good, Owen said. Into this ranch, our children, our life together. Time well spent. No regrets, not a single one. You. Only that we did not meet sooner, that I did not get even more time with you. Owen pressed a kiss to her forehead. We will have more. Years and years more. I am not going anywhere without you. Promise, I promise. You are stuck with me, Willa Xavier, for however long we have left. Good, Willa said, already drifting toward sleep. That is exactly where I want to be, stuck with you. Owen held her as her breathing deepened and steadied, as she slipped into dreams. He stayed awake a while longer, listening to the sounds of the house settling around them, thinking about the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. From a burned wagon on the prairie to this warm bed in their home, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived and a love well tended. He thought about Hope, sleeping in the guest room tonight with Daniel, probably already planning the breakfast she would make for everyone in the morning, still taking care of them all the way she had been taken care of. He thought about all their children, scattered now but always connected, always finding their way back home. He thought about the grandchildren, who would grow up hearing the story of how their family began, learning from it whatever lessons they needed about courage and compassion, and taking chances when they mattered most. And he thought about the younger version of himself, dusty and exhausted, standing over a burned wagon with a crying baby in his arms, having no idea that stopping to help would lead to this. To everything. To the only thing that mattered. If he could go back and tell that young man anything, he would tell him this. The hard ride would be worth it. Every mile in the dark, every moment of fear and uncertainty, every doubt about whether he was doing the right thing. It would all be worth it, because at the end of that ride was Willa, was love, was a family and a future beyond anything he could imagine. But he did not need to go back. He was here in this moment, with the woman he loved sleeping peacefully in his arms, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Owen closed his eyes and let sleep take him, secure in the knowledge that when he woke, Willa would still be there. She would still be choosing him. And he would still be the luckiest man alive, all because one day, 40 years ago, he had heard a baby crying and decided to stop. Decided to help. Decided to care. That decision had made all the difference. It had given him everything that mattered. And as he drifted into dreams, surrounded by the life he and Willa had built together, Owen Xavier knew with absolute certainty that he would make the same choice again, every single time for all eternity. Because love, real love, was always worth the ride, always worth the risk, always worth saying yes to, even when you did not know where it would lead, and theirs had led them home.